All right, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for the Block Talk. Good morning. It's me, Jamie Taylor, and I am here with a very special guest this morning. Our episode is sponsored today by First Trust Home Loans, an Arkansas-based bank that has grown quite a bit out of Sheridan into our market here in Little Rock. So thank you, First Trust Home Loans, for sponsoring this episode, and welcome, Mr. Baker Kurrus.
Well, thank you. It's what a treat to be with you.
Well, I'm so thankful. You're running for mayor of our great city of Little Rock. I was fortunate enough to run into you through a mutual friend and found all about your campaign and what is driving you to bring this city together. So I read some articles. I found a little bit about your story, but I'd like our listeners to kind of hear what your background is and how you got to the point where you decided, I'm going to run for mayor.
Okay. Well, I got, I was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Moved to Little Rock with my father, who's with the telephone company. Stayed here a bit and then moved outside of Hot Springs and went to public schools and all those places. I got my first big break when I was 14. I got a full-time job. 48 hours a week, cleaning fish, pumping gas, and
that sounds fun.
Mowing grass. Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I made $50 a week. At the end of every week, I got paid on Wednesdays. Mrs. Dennison would hand me a check after taxes. It was $37, and it was more money than I'd ever seen in one place. And it just invigorating, really fun, and hard work. And I wasn't a hit with the girls because I either smelled like fish, gasoline, or something in between.
Hey, but you had some dollars in your pocket.
Hey, I did, and I saved that money. That was what was fun about it. I had the instinct to, I never aspired to wealth, but I always aspired to security, even as a kid. So when I went to law school, I was still spending that money I started making when I was 14.
Yeah.
And that's what I went to. I played sports and was an athlete, didn't study much, frankly, in high school, was able to slide through without any trouble. But went to Fayetteville, realized my athleticism was not going to carry me to the big leagues, but I could have played a little more baseball, but instead I went to school and I focused that creative energy on studying, realized that was my ticket, and worked hard at U of A, went to Harvard Law School. That was an interesting experience.
That's incredible, just because Harvard Law is such an incredible school. It's such a major fixture in the country, and then to take that and bring it right back home, that education, you must have been inspired to come back to your home state and make some changes.
Well, I love Little Rock. I love Arkansas. I was nicknamed Arkansas when I was in law school. You go to Boston. I got off the airplane. The first time I'd ever been on a commercial airplane is when my dad shook my hand. I didn't have any place to stay up there. I weren't cell phones. I didn't have anybody's number. I got on a plane in Little Rock, Arkansas, shook my pop's hand, and had everything I owned in a Samsonite two-seater that I'd won in a speech contest. One of those old fiberglass suitcases.
Yeah. And landed in Boston?
Yes.
Isn't that where Cheers is?
Cheers. Cheers bar is right there.
Everybody knows your name there?
Yeah. I want to go where everybody knows my name. Well, up there, nobody knew my name.
Yeah.
And except one person. I met this really cute girl, believe it or not. I was getting off the airplane, bumbling around, and the subway didn't go all the way to the airport. So you had to catch a bus, cost a dime, and then that would take you to the blue line, which would take you to the central part of the city, and you could get to the red line and go to Harvard Square. I didn't know any of that. I was kind of wandering around, and this lady said, a young woman said, she went to Smith, and she said, hey, where are you going? I said, well, I'm trying to get to Harvard Square. She goes, well, come with me. I'm going there too. So she showed me how to get on the bus, get my stuff, load up, get on the subway, go out to Harvard Square. Her name was Denise. Remember this name, Denise DeNovi. And she said, I said, man, thanks a million. She said, what are you doing up here? 'Cause they always ask where you're from. And I said, I'm going to law school, and I don't know what's next, but I just hopped off. It's about 5:30 in the afternoon. Beautiful day. People are walking around Harvard Square. I've never been any place like that. I do remember this. There were two people preaching on two different corners of the square, both claiming to be the Messiah.
Oh, wow.
And I knew one of them was wrong.
Yeah,
I didn't know
for
which
sure.
one for sure. But,
For sure.
And anyway, so I bumbled around up there, slept on the streets for 3 or 4 days. Was really kind of a tough time for me, frankly.
Yeah.
Sleeping outside and didn't have any place to go, trying to find a place to live. And but anyway, I'd been up there 3 or 4 days, and I'm walking back. I'd stashed my suitcase. I'd figured out a place to do that over at the Divinity School. I figured nobody would steal my stuff at the Harvard Divinity School.
That's a pretty good plan, but I just got a lot of insight into kind of why you beat the street so hard with your own 2 feet. Because when you struggle to reach a dream, or when you get involved in something like, I'm going to go to law school, but I don't have the money to go and find this place to live, I don't have the money to just come out and do something that maybe privilege would have allowed me to do, I have to go out here and force this dream to become a reality. That's extremely inspiring to me.
Well, I
appreciate
worked
that.
on the Friday before the Saturday I got on the plane. I mean, I was working as hard as I could, saving my money. When I went to law school, I had enough money to buy 2 Corvettes, and I had a '64 model Chevy 2 that I'd bought. My dad told me I could get anything I wanted, and I told that to a woman the other day, and she goes, "Wow, that must have been great to have that much money." And I said, "No, my dad didn't mean that he would buy me anything I wanted.
Right.
He just said, Baker, if you want a car, go get anything you want."
If you want money, go get. You gotta learn how to make it, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I could spend my money on, and I was on my own pretty much. But, and I don't complain about that. It was a blessing in a different way to be independent. My parents loved me. That wasn't a problem. It was just that they inspired all of us. My brother and my sister both worked. We all did, so I was, 3 or 4 days on the street up there, and I was getting a little dejected. I was walking back toward the square. I was calling phones, in a phone booth, no cell phone, all that stuff. And I hear somebody holler, "Baker, Baker." And I go, "Nobody knows me here." And it's Denise. Oh. And she says, "Man, you look terrible." And I said,
"Thanks, Denise."
I said, "Well, it's not going so good right now." And she said, "Come with me." And I stayed with her, and she had 3 roommates living in a dump, basically.
College life.
Yeah, but she was so nice to me, and so were her roommates, and I slept on their couch till I could find a place to stay. And she became and still is a preeminent Hollywood producer, now doing her own stuff. But she extended kindness to me, kindness of a stranger. I don't know what it's all about, but it was, lots of people up there, and for her to run into me when I was kind of really at a low spot.
It's a fairly divine moment.
Well, it really made a difference to me. And I wasn't ever about to come home. I mean, I would have worked it out, but she really helped me, and then it went from there. I got out of law school. I spent a year in Dallas. I wanted to see the world. It didn't take me long to realize I belonged here. Yeah. Dallas was great. I was doing wonderfully at this big firm. It was fun. I was lawyer 67. Right. That also wasn't sort of my personal style. So I came back to Little Rock, and a friend of mine he died last night, honestly.
We're so sorry
a great
for your
man.
loss.
Robert Schultz was his name. It will always be his name. He was a hero in World War II, a brilliant man. A Harvard Law grad had contacted me and said, "If you ever want to come back to Arkansas, give me a call." And he had a young associate who was quickly a partner named Thomas Ray, who's now a U.S. magistrate judge, working with him. And they asked me to join them, and I did, and it was marvelous. I did that for 18 years and learned so much from both of them. Yeah. And they're both, of course, still, Bob's gone, but Tom's still a great friend. Yeah. And so is Steve Schultz, who worked with us, Bob's son. It's just been, I've just been blessed in so many ways.
Well, and it sounds like the culmination of your story. It just has so much in it that kind of leads you to a point of wanting to unite a city and turn it into a community. Well, how did it happen?
Well, there's a little more to the story. I got a job offer to head up the International Legal Department at Walmart in 1998, and I accepted that position. I loved what I was doing here. It was an attractive thing. It was there was a lot about it that appealed to me, and I had a short but very illustrious 2-day career at Walmart.
Woo! That's about how long my career lasted at Walmart, too. I was a checker.
Well, they were very nice to me. But I went up there, and I was getting ready to get on a plane to go to Seoul, Korea, via Tokyo. And I did international work for them. And my son called me on my bag phone. Remember those bag phones, a luggable cellular phone? And I had done a lot of cellular telephone regulation, incidentally, but he called me early in the morning. I was just literally at the airport, and he said, "Dad, when are you coming home?" He was still in Little Rock. I was up there. We had our house for sale. Our Sunday school class had already had a going-away party for me, and I just couldn't get on the plane.
Yeah.
I just made up my mind not to go.
Yeah.
And it was very embarrassing in some respects. But on the other hand, I made that choice because I didn't want to screw up the thing that was most important to me at that point in my life. And it still is. It'll always be. It's your faith, your family, your friends. Those things transcend any place you go, anything you do, wherever you are. That's what's most important. And I just couldn't get on the plane.
Yeah.
And so I come back here, and then Win Rockefeller and his wife Lisa Ann call and say, "Baker, we never wanted you to go up there anyway. Why don't you come over here and work?" we had done legal work together. We'd been involved in all sorts of things together as both business associates and friends. I was not associated as an owner of the business, but I'd represented them in so many things. And that was another marvelous chapter of my life that I did for 14 more years thereafter, where I got into business and I actually started off as vice president and general counsel of a group of companies that they owned. Ultimately, was president of all those companies when got into politics. Unfortunately, he died, which was a real blow, and I think about him all the time. Well, he changed everybody he met, and so Lisa Ann is a different personality, quiet in many ways, but still a real powerful personality with a generous heart and a kind heart. I mean, they made a great team, both of them did, and their family as a whole. But he was inspirational to me in so many ways, and again, we lost him way too soon. Yeah. But his work will survive, and his inspirational work, and everybody that met him will never forget him, and always work toward the things that he cared about, which were people. Mm-hmm. He cared about people.
Well, the thought of walking through your community, having a walkable community, being able to walk through a neighborhood, having a bike path, stopping at the corner and having, maybe a soda or picking up an ice cream and then walking to the park. I mean, these are things that you envision for the future of Little Rock and the areas that you kind of feel are getting to be a little bit hollow. Is that correct?
It's essential. I mean, it's exactly what we have to be doing. Those simple things that we all enjoy, transcend the biggest issues that we have, whether it's safety, for example. The more people on the street, the safer the street.
Yeah.
The more houses that are occupied, the safer the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. The fewer vacant lots, the safer the neighborhood. The safer the neighborhood, the more attractive the neighborhood. We have such beautiful real estate in this town. It's just a marvelous place, and so much of it is completely underutilized now, with streets and sidewalks and water and sewer sitting on the curb, and the real estate, 8,000 vacant lots.
It's astonishing, because that's where my heart, you said the magic word, so we can go that direction.
Okay.
Real estate is definitely the love of my life outside of my husband. And I am so excited about what your plan involves, but I'm curious to see how you start that. How do you ignite a neighborhood that previously has been downtrodden? It's in a situation where multiple vacancies are present. There's vacant lots. You can't get an investor to go in there and spend money because they want infrastructure behind that. They want the sewage to work. They want curbs and gutter. They want lights. They want to make sure people have bills of assurance or some sort of association that keeps the grass mowed and the trash picked up. And so where do you start where we're at right now with that many vacancies and that much going on? I mean, where do we even start?
Well, you have to get a toehold, so to speak, to use a country term. You've got to start somewhere. Now, you can either start at the frayed part of the quilt, so to speak, or you can start, most people who restore a quilt, and that's what it is. It's a crazy quilt with all sorts of beautiful colors. I think you start where things are the best. You go to a place and you talk. First off, I don't start. I start by asking people like you and asking people, and I'm not going to name names. I could name you 15 people that I've already talked to who are right in the middle of making things like this happen, who are struggling and meeting obstacles every day in an effort to redo exactly what this city needs and what this city depends on. This is not some sort of a thing that's just a nice thing to do. No, this is the lifeblood of our city. If our sales taxes are $100 million of our revenue out of a $265 million budget. If you don't have people living and shopping in your city, you don't have the means to do all the other things that we want to do. And real estate taxes are 14% of our city's revenue. On the operating side, they're another plenty of other money. I could talk at length about where the rest of the money goes, but
You're
it's
really
essential.
good at the numbers.
I'm telling you. And why are we sitting here with this beautiful real estate and we're not embracing people who want to fix it up, want to develop it? It's lovely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be tonight in the Central High neighborhood in a home that's just gorgeous, with a beautiful back porch and a quiet street and great big trees and a flat sidewalk and nice neighbors, but also neighbors who aren't doing their share. They're and we got to fix that. We don't have maybe all the tools we need, but I don't think we're using the tools we have.
Right. And when you say not using the tools we have, like that's my real question is, should you be elected and you get the opportunity to go out and be the mayor of Little Rock, are you going to have teams assembled to go out and do something in these neighborhoods beyond just the buying and selling of the real estate rehabilitation? I mean, in my opinion anyways, it comes down to education. If the residents of these properties or of these neighborhoods are not aware, how do they better their situation? How do they buy property? How do they make sure their taxes are paid? How do they figure all of this out? If they don't have that information, how do we get it to them? Because in my mind, it all starts with education. Is that how you feel as well?
Well, you have to start with education, and you have to go where the problems are. You don't solve these problems from the corner office at City Hall. That's not how it happens. I've done this before. I did it at a school district. I did it in business. I've helped and consulted with troubled businesses and successful businesses that wanted to go from being pretty good to being even better, and then ultimately to being superior businesses. And you start by going to where the issues are. And you go to somebody who lives there, and you ask them, a person who's got a wonderful, say, small brick house, a retiree. I've done this. I mean, I'm not telling you what I haven't done. I'm telling you what I've already done and what I'll continue to do. You go to a nice guy who's weed eating his yard at 7:04 in the morning on a Saturday when his yard doesn't need much weed eating. It's perfect already. And he's got pride in what he owns, and he's probably in a position where he can't move. I mean, he's retired, fixed income, but got a nice house. And he's struggling because mentally especially, he sees the properties next to him are not being adequately maintained. They're actually boarded up and are sitting there some sort of a long-term investment for someone. That's not what we're looking for. I mean, it's not helping. And then weed lots around him, trash and stuff, guns going off at night. That's the guy. You go straight to him and say, how can I help you? Give me some advice about what you need to stay here, to age in place, as we say, because that's what we want. We want stable families. It's not about gentrification. People talk about that. Well, I can tell you what, in the central city, if you got a vacant lot and you put a nice architecturally compatible home on that's not gentrification. There's nothing there now except a weed lot, for crying out loud. Or you unboard a house that's got good bones and you put it back together, and you can either rent it or sell it to somebody who wants to live there and drive a stake in the ground and say, I want to support the institutions here, I want to live here, work here, shop here. That's what's the lifeblood of the city, and we just ignored the whole thing is hollow right now.
Yeah.
Nobody gets the big idea. And that's where leadership steps in. And you say, here's the big idea. We're not down here in say, code enforcement with the notion that we want to cite people for tall grass.
Yeah.
Our job as a code enforcement officer is the same job that we all have in this city, is to make this a wonderful, beautiful, attractive, vibrant, living neighborhood.
Right.
So your job is not, and you're going to have to do some of this. You're going to have to issue the nasty grams and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But your job is really to change this neighborhood.
Right.
It's a hard job. But it's not just get up in the morning, drive around and cite somebody for having a car parked in their yard.
No.
It's to change the whole neighborhood.
It's to inspire that attitude.
Yeah, it's a can-do, green light kind of approach, as opposed to, well, this is a terrible place, it's not working, these people don't like me, I don't like them, I've got to build a wall between us because that's how I get through my day, I'm not going to invest in my job because I don't want to take on the task of changing this city. But everybody that works here has to agree to that. The mayor has to be the one to start the whole thing. The mayor is a servant for every single person that lives in this town and every single person that works for this city. Yeah. And it's a very hard job. It's not a ribbon cutting job or a baby kissing job. You can do some of that, but you've got to step up as a leader and say, no, I am going to be the servant leader. I'm going to go down there. If I have to, I'll get a damn weed whacker and I'll start in until I get somebody else that wants to help me. I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
If that's what you've got to do, that's where you start. And I don't think we'll have to do that, but I do think we've got to get everybody involved in the big idea is to revitalize this place, to make it a place where everybody wants to live, like the people in this room.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Well, and the people in this room, too, all of us are small business owners. We want to grow and live in this city, and it inspires me. Your energy is way more jacked up than my coffee right now because I'm just so excited to hear that you want to get involved, get your hands dirty, and really try to make this city turn a different direction. And so my question to you is, why did you choose this anyways? Like you said, you don't have to do this. This isn't something that you're seeking after because you have to do it.
Yeah, I love this city. I mean, I've got 3 millennial children. They're wonderful. I mean, they're just incredible people, and I'm so glad they live here. I want that for everybody. I want this to be a place of opportunity, and it's not all selfish, but, I don't have to get on an airplane and go to Tacoma to see my grandchild.
Yeah.
I've got two now. I've got a grandson that turned a month old yesterday.
Oh.
And it's a magic, wonderful thing. It's back to those three things I said: faith, family, and friends. And if you can have that in a wonderful place that's just dying to grow, why not? Why not Little Rock?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be Oklahoma City or Nashville? Or it can be here.
Yeah, we're capital city, and I think that we need to take some time too to compete with our buddies up in Northwest Arkansas. You see the growth and the economic development that's going on there. Some of that money was poured into the community, but the biggest thing is they're running that city in a very effective way. Would you agree?
Well, it's true. I think it's a different approach. It's a different level of energy. It's a different and it's a vibe that you get. I mean, it's not something you open a can and pour on somebody's head. It's an attitude, and attitude trumps everything. I've been in big businesses where you had the greatest plans and you had everything in mind about what was just going to be perfect, and if you didn't have the right attitude, the right culture,
right.
Culture and attitude trump everything. Army with worn-out shoes that sings while they march will go further and faster than anybody with brand new uniforms and a fresh pair of boots.
Yeah.
Always. Because if the Army with the new boots doesn't care about what they're doing and doesn't see the vision and doesn't understand the big idea, they won't get anywhere.
Right.
You give me some people that I don't care what they've got. They can have a pair of worn-out gloves and worn-out shoes, but they're willing to work, and they love what they're doing. They'll outwork and outdo anybody else.
Well, and that brings me back to something else I wanted to ask you about that's really important to me, because I know a lot of our listener base may not know this about you, but you have made some crazy, palpable, noticeable changes during the time that you were in the Little Rock School District. It was a big, huge deal. I know a lot of people are not aware, maybe in my base, that what happened and how you were engaged in that and the result of that. I do have some dear friends who are very pleased with the result. Can you tell us a little bit about your attitude and how you changed everything over there at the Little Rock School District?
Well, it was a team thing, Jamie. What I did was work on the attitude, but it was a marvelous group of people. And let me give you one example I think that really is the embodiment of what I'm talking about, okay? Because most people thought the school district was sort of down and out, and people were not first rate and maybe not totally competent and all that sort of thing.
Right.
And I never believed that. I thought they needed leadership. I thought they needed to be appreciated. I thought they needed to be assisted. They needed to be allowed to do their jobs, to work to the highest level of their capability, to have their authority clearly defined so they could move to the very edges of their authority, not be confined to the very middle of what they knew they could do without getting yelled at, and never yell at anybody, never curse at anybody, never belittle anybody. But that was going on over there. And so when I walked in, I put a stop to all of that just by my example. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend I know something I don't. I'm going to find the people that do know it, just like in the Central City. There are things that you know and I'm not going to call the names. I'm dying to, but I'm just saying, that they know. They've been there. They've done it. All I've got to do is say, how can I help you? What could the city do to help you? What can we do to support you? And then get to work. And at the school district, we needed a West Little Rock Middle School as well as a Southwest Little Rock High School. The school board had decided to do that before the state stepped in. I took the job sort of because nobody else wanted it, and the team was down. I mean, they were all down, and nobody thought about growing. Everybody thought about sort of funeral prearrangement. The state's got us under control. What are we going to do to sort of survive this? I said, no, we're going positive here. This is going to be a fun place to work. We're going to enjoy each other, and we're going to work hard. And that's what they did. These same group of people that everybody said can't get anything done, my gosh, did they ever work hard. And what did we do? For example, this is a real estate deal. Yeah. The old Leisure Arts building was sitting out in the ranch.
Yes.
Been sitting there a long time. It was on the market for $14 million. We bought it for $11.6. I went out there and walked around, and I said, this is screaming to be a school. And nobody saw that much. I saw it. It was self-evident to me that this could really be something, and we could open it quickly. But so we put that. I typed the contract myself, since I know how to do that sort of
Yeah.
thing. At my office at the school district headquarters, I typed the contract myself. We got it signed up, and then got sued. Of course, everybody sues everybody around
Yes.
here. And I signed that contract on the last day of September in 2015. Remember, September 2015, the last day of we got sued. The judge decided the case in late March of 2016. So we went from a contract in 2015 to a lawsuit and then a ruling in our favor on a Wednesday in March, late March of 2016. That was a Wednesday. By the Friday, we closed that deal. I'd already gotten with the title company. I'd run the Schedule B. We had all the requirements met and all the exceptions removed and stuff I knew how to do. We closed it on a Friday after the judge ruled late on a Wednesday. On that Monday morning, we had contractors out there. And that very fall, the fall of 2016, we had students out in what was essentially an old office building, and it's beautiful. The contractor worked hard. Everybody worked hard. The school district worked hard. All those people that people said can't do anything, it went above and beyond. I'm talking about long hours, hard work, blood and guts kind of stuff where they just had to grind sometimes, and they got it all done. And so that's what people can do when they really get momentum.
Right.
And now that school, they've asked me to speak at their graduation, that first class that started.
What an honor.
I'm tickled to death. I can't wait. Mayor or not, they said, come on out. So whether or not I'm the mayor doesn't matter to me. It matters to me, but either way, I can't wait to speak to the class. That's the first group of sixth graders who went. And we started with a sixth grade. We moved to 6 and 7 the next year. Now it's 6, 7, and 8. And the thing is booming, and it's desegregated, and it's got kids from all kinds of backgrounds. They're mixing and learning from each other. It's just what this city ought to be about, a can-do attitude.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like uniting people for a purpose, moving them in the direction of change, and then inspiring that to be a positive change with a great attitude is something that you have done well multiple times in your careers. Tell me about real estate with you specifically and your experience there and why you feel like that is something that can transcend the rest of the issues that we struggle with as a city.
Well, I got excited about real estate as a young man. My first property class was taught by a guy named A. James Kasner, and he wrote the book, literally. My red property book was written by A. James Kasner, and he was my professor in law school. And I loved it. I loved it. It was just fascinating to me. I like the art of the real. It's real progress. It's real stuff you put your hands around. It's spaces that people love and enjoy and get to use. So I was hooked to start with. I went to Dallas and was working in the real estate department of a large law firm doing registrations for limited partnerships that were really on fire back in that period of time. Came back up here, started working with this marvelous man I just told you about, Robert Schultz, who knew so much about almost everything. He took me under his wing, and I started working in the real estate legal area and did all sorts of fun things, representing lenders and borrowers and developers. I do anything. It's fun.
Well, and speaking of development, you are responsible for one of the neighborhoods here in Little Rock that I consider premier. Is that Woodlands Edge, correct?
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind Woodlands Edge?
Well, and I'm not responsible for it. It was a team thing. Again, the creative genius is a guy named Ron Tyne, who's a landscape architect and has a degree in forestry management. And he and I were friends because I'd represented him when he worked for another company. And then the Rockefeller family loves this sort of thing, green development, we were on fire to do something. I had a good friend named Robert Wilson, Bob Wilson, recently passed away. Great man, great family, and all of his family are neat people. So we started talking about a way to develop this beautiful real estate, which is essentially in the city, by laying a plan lightly on the land. And Ron is the creative guy. Right. I mean, I take no credit for that and deserve no credit for that. I was the finance guy, the contract guy, the covenants guy. Anything to do with the subdivision, I would do. But Ron and I walked that land, and he's a genius. That's all you can say. People will go to that subdivision for years and wonder how he figured it all out. And it's beautiful, and it is and it's award-winning because it's a plan laid lightly on the land. It preserves the natural amenities that are there. The subdivision has clean water that runs down the streams. There's lots of trees. It's green. It's everything you want in that particular context as a place to live. And and it's got trails, and we
Yeah.
kept a lot of the natural areas, including this part that the Wilson family really loves, called Fern Valley. You can walk out there, and you just think you're in the middle of the Smoky Mountains National Park. It's just gorgeous, and that's all for Ron's credit and Wynn's credit and Lisanne's credit, and the two other partners, Tommy Hillman and Norman Hoggard, were there when we needed them. So it's just a team effort, but it's great fun. Same concepts, different plans, and different sorts of approaches work almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Give people a sense of place, give them a place where they really feel like it's home. All that stuff works.
Well, I can't thank you enough for telling us everything about what you're trying to do with our city and the direction in which you're trying to move us forward. Our goal at the Block Talk podcast and how it was created was to add value to a block of time for our listener so that they could learn and understand what our guest is trying to do and their motivation behind it. So I'm very, very thankful for your attendance today, for talking with me, and we wish you all the best in the upcoming race. If you are a competitor of Mr. Baker Kurrus, you better watch out. He is full of energy, ideas, and vision. So we are very thankful for your attendance today on the Block Talk, and I'm going to sign off.
Thank you, Jamie. Great to be with you.
All right, Block Talk, we're out.